Hey there, Flo here. Another Bible reading. So I didn't end up going anywhere today. I just had a hard time getting up this morning and just decided to sleep in. I might still go somewhere this week, either tomorrow or later, I don't know. But anyway, I just stayed home. So I have a chance to do another reading stream. I just finished watching a Times Square Church YouTube broadcast, so that's why I wasn't on earlier. So let's see. Today we're going to be reading Deuteronomy 32 to 34, Psalm 91, Matthew 27, 1 to 31, and Mark 15, 1 to 20. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the nice weather and ability to get rest today. Pray that you bless the reading of your word and help it to sink into our hearts and change our minds and hearts, and help us to love you like even a small fraction of what you are due, what you deserve. Help us to give our lives to you more each day, and help us to find you each day in our lives and not walk away from you ever. And I thank you for all these things. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, DeClams. How's it going? Doing well, thank you. About to do some Bible reading. Alrighty. So we're going to start off in Deuteronomy chapter 32. Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak. Hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. Let my teaching fall like rain, and my speech settle like dew, like gentle rain on new grass, like showers on tender plants. For I will proclaim the name of the Lord, ascribe greatness to our God. He is the rock, his work is perfect, all his ways are just. The God of faithfulness without injustice, righteous and upright is he. His people have acted corruptly toward him. The spot on them is not that of his children, but of a perverse and crooked generation. Is this how you repay the Lord, O foolish and senseless people? Is he not your Father and Creator? Has he not made you and established you? Remember the days of old, consider the years long past. Ask your father, and he will tell you, your elders, and they will inform you. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided the sons of man, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. But the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted inheritance. He found him in his desert land, in a barren, howling wilderness. He surrounded him, he instructed him, he guarded him as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirs up its nest and hovers over its young, he spread his wings to catch them and carried them on his pinions. The Lord alone led him, and no foreign god was with him. He made him ride on the heights of the land and fed him the produce of the field. He nourished him with honey from the rock and oil from the flinty crag, with curds from the herd and milk from the flock, with the fat of lambs, with the rams of Bashan, and goats, with the choicest grains of wheat. From the juice of the finest grapes you drank wine, but Jerushan grew fat and kicked, becoming fat, bloated, and gorged. He abandoned the God who made him and scorned the rock of his salvation. They provoked his jealousy with foreign gods. They enraged him with abominations. They sacrificed to demons, not to God, to gods they had not known, to newly arrived gods, which your fathers did not fear. You ignored the rock who brought you forth. You forgot the God who gave you birth. When the Lord saw this, he rejected them. Provoked to anger by his sons and daughters, he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what will be their end. For they are a perverse generation, children of unfaithfulness. They have provoked my jealousy by that which is not God. They have enraged me with their worthless idols. So I will make them jealous by those who are not a people. I will make them angry by a nation without understanding. For a fire has been kindled by my anger, and it burns to the depths of Sheol. It consumes the earth and its produce, and scorches the foundations of the mountains. I will heap disasters upon them. I will spend my arrows against them. They will be wasted from hunger and ravaged by pestilence and bitter plague. I will send the fangs of wild beasts against them, with the venom of vipers that slither in the dust. Outside the sword will take their children, and inside terror will strike the young man and the young woman, the infant and the gray-haired man. I would have said that I would cut them to pieces and blot out their memory from mankind, if I had not dreaded the taunt of the enemy, lest their adversaries misunderstand and say, "Our own hand has prevailed. It was not the Lord who did all this." Israel is a nation devoid of counsel, with no understanding among them. If only they were wise, they would understand it. They would comprehend their fate. How could one man pursue 1,000, or two put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock had sold them, unless the Lord had given them up? For their rock is not like our rock, even our enemies concede. But their vine is from the vine of Sodom, and from the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are poisonous, their clusters are bitter. Their wine is the venom of serpents, the deadly poison of cobras. Have I not stored up these things, sealed up within my vaults? Vengeance is mine, I will repay. In due time their foot will slip, for their day of disaster is near, and their doom is coming quickly. For the Lord will vindicate his people and have compassion on his servants, when he sees that their strength is gone, and no one remains, slave or free. He will say, "Where are their gods, the rock in which they took refuge, which ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise up and help you, let them give you shelter. See now that I am he, there is no God beside me. I bring death and I give life, I wound and I heal, and there is no one who can deliver from my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven and declare, as surely as I live forever, when I sharpen my flashing sword and my hand grasps it in judgment, I will take vengeance on my adversaries and repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and while my sword devours flesh, the blood of the slain and captives, the heads of the enemy leaders. Rejoice, O heavens, with him, and let all God's angels worship him. Rejoice, O nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his children. He will take vengeance on his adversaries, and repay those who hate him. He will cleanse his land and his people. Then Moses came with Joshua son of Nun, and recited all the words of this song in the hearing of the people. When Moses had finished reciting all these words to all Israel, he said to them, "Take to heart all these words I testify among you today, so that you may command your children to carefully follow all the words of this law. For they are not idle words to you, because they are your life, and by them you will live long in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess." On that same day the Lord said to Moses, "Go up into the Abarim range to Mount Nebo in the land of Moab across from Jericho, and view the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites as their own possession. And there on the mountain that you climb you will die and be gathered to your people, just as your brother Aaron died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people. For at the waters of Meribah Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin, both of you broke faith with me among the Israelites by failing to treat me as holy in their presence. Although you shall see from a distance the land that I am giving to the Israelites, you shall not enter it." Okay. Hey, Alameen. Yeah, no worries. It happens every once in a while. I don't know what the issue is necessarily. I think most websites have short-term cookies that expire, and then you have to log in again or something. That happens with most streaming websites. Maybe every month or so I have to re-log in or whatever, but it seemingly happened in the middle of a stream yesterday. Could have been my connection too, but since I had to log back in, it was kind of probably something beside that. Not a huge deal. All right, so let's go on to Deuteronomy chapter 33. This is the blessing that Moses, the man of God, pronounced upon the Israelites before his death. He said, "The Lord came from Sinai and dawned upon us from Seir. He shone forth from Mount Paran and came with myriads of holy ones, with flaming fire at his right hand. Surely you love the people. All the holy ones are in your hand, and they sit down at your feet. Each receives your words, the law that Moses gave us, the possession of the assembly of Jacob." So the Lord became king in Jeshurun, when the leaders of the people gathered, when the tribes of Israel came together. Let Reuben live and not die, nor his men be few. And concerning Judah he said, O Lord, hear the cry of Judah, and bring him to his people. With his own hands he defends his cause, but may you be a help against his foes. Concerning Levi he said, Give your Thummim to Levi, and your Urim to the godly one, whom you tested at Massah and contested at the waters of Meribah. He said of his father and mother, I do not consider them. He disregarded his brothers and did not know his sons, for he kept your word and maintained your covenant. He will teach your ordinances to Jacob and your law to Israel. He will set incense before you and whole burnt offerings on your altar. Bless his substance, O Lord, and accept the work of his hands. Smash the loins of those who rise against him, and of his foes, so that they can rise no more. Concerning Benjamin he said, May the beloved of the Lord rest secure in him. God shields him all day long, and upon his shoulders he rests. Concerning Joseph he said, May his land be blessed by the Lord, with the precious dew from heaven above, and deep waters that lie beneath, with the bountiful harvest from the sun, and the abundant yield of the seasons, with the best of the ancient mountains and the bounty of the everlasting hills, with the choice gifts of the land and everything in it, and with the favor of him who dwelt in the burning bush. May these rest on the head of Joseph, and crown the brow of the prince of his brothers. His majesty is like a firstborn bull, and his horns are like those of a wild ox. With them he will gore the nations, even to the ends of the earth. Such are the myriads of Ephraim, and such are the thousands of Manasseh. Concerning Zebulun he said, Rejoice, Zebulun, in your journeys, and Issachar in your tents. They will call the peoples to a mountain. There they will offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they will feast on the abundance of the seas and the hidden treasures of the sand. Concerning Gad he said, Blessed is he who enlarges the domain of Gad. He lies down like a lion and tears off an arm or a head. He chose the best land for himself, because a ruler's portion was reserved for him there. He came from the leaders of the people. He administered the Lord's justice and his ordinances for Israel. Concerning Dan he said, Dan is a lion's cub leaping out of Bashan. Concerning Naphtali he said, Naphtali is abounding with favor, full of the blessing of the Lord. He shall take possession of the sea and the south. And concerning Asher he said, May Asher be the most blessed of sons, may he be the most favored among his brothers, and dip his foot in oil. May the bolts of your gate be iron and bronze, and may your strength match your days. There is none like the God of Jeshurun, who rides the heavens to your aid, and the clouds in his majesty. The eternal God is your dwelling place, and underneath are the everlasting arms. He drives out the enemy before you, giving the command, Destroy him. So Israel dwells securely, the fountain of Jacob lives untroubled, in a land of grain and new wine, where even the heavens drip with dew. Blessed are you, O Israel, who is like you, a people saved by the Lord. He is the shield that protects you, the sword in which you boast. Your enemies will cower before you, and you shall trample their high places. So Moses is just pronouncing a final blessing on each of the tribes of Israel before he dies. Sure, we'll check with our team for further investigation. Probably not anything to worry about. It could have been something on my end. I think some of the other streams, it's interesting. Like I think Rumble captured the whole stream, but for some reason, Bolt dropped out and YouTube also dropped out. So I don't think it's just a Bolt issue. I would say probably ignore it. Unless it happens again, then I'll let you know or something. But I don't think it's something worth investigating. You'd probably be chasing shadows at this point. But I appreciate the thought. And it could also be the restreaming service that I'm using. Sometimes there's a hiccup with their service, and there's so many things it could be, since I'm streaming to multiple platforms. All right, let's go on to Deuteronomy 34. Then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, which faces Jericho. And the Lord showed him the whole land, from Gilead as far as Dan, all of Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as the western sea, the Negev, and the region from the valley of Jericho, the city of palms, all the way to Zoar. And the Lord said to him, This is the land that I swore to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when I said, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your own eyes, but you will not cross into it. So Moses the servant of the Lord died there in the land of Moab, as the Lord had said. And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, facing Beth Peor. And no one to this day knows the location of his grave. Moses was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyes were not weak, and his vitality had not diminished. The Israelites grieved for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days, until the time of weeping and mourning for Moses came to an end. Now Joshua son of Nun was filled with the spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands on him. So the Israelites obeyed him and did as the Lord had commanded Moses. Since that time no prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. No prophet who did all the signs and wonders that the Lord sent Moses to do in the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh and to all his officials and all his land, and no prophet who performed all the mighty acts of power and awesome deeds that Moses did in the sight of all Israel. Right. Hey, shaking, I guess I'll call you. Shaking my head, something or other. Shaking my head, to be honest. You're saying hello to the entire world. Well, I don't think the entire world is watching my stream, but thanks for the hello anyway. All right, so that is it for Deuteronomy. The next reading will be Joshua, as far as the Old Testament goes, but we have a Psalm to read and Matthew and Mark. So let's go on to Psalm chapter 91. Oh, it's a good one. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, You are my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly plague. He will cover you with his feathers. Under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the calamity that destroys at noon. Though 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, no harm will come near you. You will only see it with your eyes and witness the punishment of the wicked, because you have made the Lord your dwelling, my refuge the Most High. No evil will befall you, no plague will approach your tent, for he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and cobra. You will trample the young lion and serpent. Because he loves me, I will deliver him. Because he knows my name, I will protect him. When he calls out to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. All right, that's Psalm 91. Rated by unknown. What does that mean? All right. So we have Matthew 27 and Mark 15. We'll start in Matthew 27, 1 to 31. When morning came, all the chief priests and elders of the people conspired against Jesus to put him to death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate the governor. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was filled with remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders. I have sinned by betraying innocent blood, he said. What is that to us? They replied. You bear the responsibility. So Judas threw the silver into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. The chief priests picked up pieces of silver and said, It is unlawful to put this into the treasury, since it is blood money. After conferring together, they used the money to buy the potter's field as a burial place for foreigners. That is why it has been called the field of blood to this day. Then what was spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. They took the 30 pieces of silver, the price set on him by the people of Israel, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord had commanded me. Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, who questioned him, Are you the king of the Jews? You have said so, Jesus replied. And when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, Do you not hear how many charges they are bringing against you? But Jesus gave no answer, not even to a single charge, much to the governor's amazement. Now it was the governor's custom at the feast to release to the crowd a prisoner of their choosing. At that time, they were holding a notorious prisoner named Barabbas. So when the crowd had assembled, Pilate asked them, Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called the Christ? For he knew it was out of envy that they had handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent him this message, Have nothing to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered terribly in a dream today because of him. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus put to death. Which of the two do you want me to release to you? Asked the governor. Barabbas, they replied. What then should I do with Jesus, who is called Christ? Pilate asked. They all answered, Crucify him. Why? Asked Pilate. What evil has he done? But they shouted all the louder, Crucify him. When Pilate saw that he was accomplishing nothing, but that instead a riot was breaking out, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd. I am innocent of this man's blood, he said. You bear the responsibility. All the people answered, His blood be on us and on our children. So Pilate released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole company around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and they twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand and knelt down before him to mock him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews! Then they spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the head repeatedly. After they had mocked him, they removed the robe and put his own cloaks back on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. All right, Mark chapter 15, verses 1 through 20. Early in the morning, the chief priests, elders, scribes, and the whole Sanhedrin devised a plan. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. So Pilate questioned him, Are you the king of the Jews? You have said so, Jesus replied. And the chief priests began to accuse him of many things. Then Pilate questioned him again, Have you no answer? Look how many charges they are bringing against you. But to Pilate's amazement, Jesus made no further reply. Now it was Pilate's custom at the feast to release to the people a prisoner of their choosing, and a man named Barabbas was imprisoned with the rebels who had committed murder during the insurrection. So the crowd went up and began asking Pilate to keep his custom. Do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews? Pilate asked. For he knew it was out of envy that the chief priests had handed Jesus over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release Barabbas to them instead. So Pilate asked them again, "What then do you want me to do with the one you call the King of the Jews?" And they shouted back, "Crucify him." "Why?" asked Pilate. "What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." And wishing to satisfy the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them. But he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. When the soldiers led Jesus away into the palace, that is the praetorium, and called the whole company together, I might have said when instead of then at the beginning, they dressed him in a purple robe, twisted together a crown of thorns, and set it on his head, and they began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They kept striking his head with a staff and spitting on him, and they knelt down and bowed before him. After they had mocked him, they removed the purple robe and put his own clothes back on him. Then they led him out to crucify him. Yeah, no worries, Alamina. I don't think it's a big deal. It happens super rarely, so I'm not concerned about it. If it was a regular thing, it would be annoying, but like on Odyssey, it always fails every single time on the Odyssey platform, so I stopped even trying to live stream there, but that's the only platform where I have any significant issues. But yeah, so that's the reading for this time. I might do another reading later, not sure. I have some stuff I need to do, but yeah, thanks everybody that might be lurking or watching this later. I will see you all next time.